Hey guys, Patriot coming at you from the tabletop, and today we are going to discuss impact drivers. What are they, and should you consider getting one if you don't have one? Now this is going to be a three-part series, a basic overview. Then we're going to compare in part two a 3-year-old technology to what's been available to us within the last 6 months or so. And then in part three, we're going to test and discuss different bits. And I've done a lot of work in this area for you guys with actual, field use, finding out what are the best bits that you can possibly get for your impact driver. And this is big because this can make or break a tool. If you're replacing bit every 20 or 30 screws, it can really make for a long afternoon of fastening. Now, if you already own an impact driver, or you're already a tradesman or a technician or a mechanic or something like that, you already know the advantages, most of the advantages. We're going to talk about some products here that are kind of fun. So if you don't have some of these newer brushless designs, you might stay tuned because it could be interesting. So what exactly makes an impact driver any different from your standard electric drill or your cordless drill? Well, most of us know a cordless drill as something like this. It has a keyless chuck up front, and it's going to work with round type bits, whether it's drill bits or any other attachments. Where a impact driver differs from a conventional drill driver is it uses a little different collet up here. So you've got a little collet that accepts hex type shanks, kind of like that, like on this little bit right here. Versus the traditional round that you would use in a drill driver. A drill driver is going to be great. It's still the #1 electric tool out there for the homeowner. It's very versatile. It's going to do a whole bunch of things. But when it comes to specifically driving fasteners, screws, lag bolts, that type of thing, nothing can beat a good impact driver like this. And getting back to the force that drill driver applies as this turns, it's the same as providing a continuous force around a fastener like this. Where the impact driver differs is that it adds a hammering component or a concussive component to that turning force. So as this is turning around in a circle, it's adding small blows around that rotational axis that provides extra torque. Now, one of the things that people will be familiar with if they've been using a drill driver to fasten or remove screws is that when there's a lot of torque applied, you can see we've got this adjustable clutch up here. When you're at higher torque settings and that fastener stops moving, like maybe you hit a real hard material or a harder wood or a knot in a wood or something like that, you actually receive a kickback in this direction. So it wants to wrench your wrist up like that, and it wants to torque your wrist. Well, with an impact driver, because it has that hammering force that's kind of going around the rotational axis, those small hammer beats, or that concussive force, removes virtually all the torque or kickback that you're feeling in the hand. So when that fastener slows down and it hits something hard, it just continues to hammer the fastener in. Because of the attribute of that hammering effect on an impact driver, it's really become a popular tool with tradesmen, craftsmen, technicians. Car mechanics for the longest time have been using impact wrenches to remove lug bolts on car wheels. Now typically they were pneumatically powered, and so that you'd attach an air hose to them, but it was a very powerful tool. And I've had to add this in, but on the topic of impact drivers, an impact driver is not the same as a hammer drill. This is a drill driver, but it's also a hammer drill. You see this hammer symbol on here? So if I'm driving screws, I'm using this setting. If I'm drilling, I'm using this setting, which disables the clutch. The clutch works in this setting here. If I'm using it as a hammer drill, I would set it in this setting. And let's see, with a battery on here, we might be able to demo that. Okay, you hear that sound? Okay, this is a longitudinal hammering. So it's hammering like a jackhammer, like this. It's using a little ratcheting device to hammer longitudinally whatever bit is in here. Typically that's concrete or something like that. With an impact driver, we're talking about a rotational force. Remember, we're talking about this force, okay? With a hammer drill, it's this force to go into material as you're going through concrete or something. I'm hitting the tripod. So just not to be confused with a hammer drill, we're talking about impact drivers. This one and this one are 12 volt. This one is a 20 volt. Now, back in the day, they rated these a little bit differently. These were typically considered 10.8 or known previously as 10.8, and all the 20 volt tools were typically known as 18 volt tools. The voltage is the same. The way that they're rating them today is different, and it's primarily has to do with marketing or to differentiate their newer stuff from their older stuff. But typically these days, 12 volt is or 10.8 is now known as 12 volt max, and 18 volt is known as 20 volt max. Now that's not to say there's still not 18 volt tools out there that are available under the 18 volt name or 10.8 name, but typically speaking you're going to see it under 12 volt or 20 volt these days. The next thing is that you're going to have either the option of a brushed motor or a brushless motor. A brushless motor is in this tool and this tool, and a brushed motor is in this tool and my drill driver here. So this is a little older technology. Brushed motors require sorry about that. Brushed motors require brushes to stay in constant contact with I think it's the armature in the motor as it goes around. In a brushless motor, you don't have that friction or that contact point. So if you're into RC cars or RC aircraft, you'll know that brushless motors have pretty much revolutionized that industry. Well, it looks like the power tool industry is going to be going the same way here. A lot of tools today are available in a brushless version. They're just now kind of starting to convert over. So because of that, this is a fairly recent tool within the last 6 months, whereas this is a 3-year-old technology, and I think even this tool here is about 2 years old. Brushless tools are going to run more efficiently. They're going to have less friction, and they're going to produce less heat. So all those things kind of tie together in a triangle, and one benefits the other. If you can afford a brushless tool, I would say go with one, but don't let the fact that it's a brushed motor dissuade you from owning an impact driver if the price point is right for you. Higher voltage is typically going to cost a little bit more money. Lower voltage is typically going to cost a little bit less. For most applications, the 12 volt power is going to be more than sufficient for the typical homeowner or hobbyist. Someone who's doing a lot of industrial application, contractor work, they might need the power of a 20 volt system, but to drive 3-inch drywall screws or even 3/8 inch lag bolts or even up to a 1/2 inch lag bolt, these 12 volt tools will do that just fine. One of the performance specifications that they measure is the torque. So if we take this 20 volt model here, this one's 1500 inch-pounds of torque. This one's about 1200 inch-pounds of torque, which is a lot for 12 volt. You can see that they're nipping at the heels of the 20 volt stuff now, which is absolutely astonishing. This Bosch is about 910 or 930 inch-pounds. Can't remember exactly. I've had this one a little bit longer, but it has no trouble driving 3-inch drywall screws into pine or 1/4 inch lag bolts or anything like that. Another key performance indicator on these is going to be the impacts per minute. And what an impact is a hammer blow. So as that chuck is rotating or that bit is rotating, how many hammer blows occur during a minute of use at its maximum RPM or maximum speed. We're not talking about a loaded speed, because as you as you're driving a fastener with one of these, the speed's going to decrease, but they measure the maximum impact speed. This one happens to be about 3,300 impacts a minute. This one's way up there, I think about 3,550 impacts a minute, and this one's about 3,100 impacts per minute. Again, that's unloaded speed. Okay, when it comes to batteries, guys, I would only recommend an impact driver if it's using a lithium-ion battery of some formula. There's different chemistries in the larger category of lithium-ion, and they keep getting better and better. So when it comes to batteries, only get lithium-powered batteries. There's still some NiCad and nickel metal hydride available out there. You typically see that stuff selling on the Black Friday sales, that type of thing. But if you're going to make the investment for a small percentage difference, go up to the lithium batteries. They're just much more efficient. Now, Capacity is another thing when it comes to the batteries. A lot of these, like this one, I think it was originally made in a 1.3 amp hour battery. These are the newer 1.5, and now they have 2 amp hour batteries that fit into the same size package as this one. On the newer drill here, these are 1.5s. I don't have the 2.0s. These were replacements for a couple that went bad. These new ones are about 3 or 4 months old now, replaced under warranty. This one here is a 2 amp hour battery, and most of these manufacturers provide a larger capacity battery that just sticks out a little bit further or is a little bit bulkier. So for example, this is a 1.5 amp hour 20 amp battery. You can see it's small. This is 20 amp, I meant 20 volt. This is a 3.0 amp hour, or just a 3 amp hour 20 volt battery. So you can see the difference there. So you can add larger batteries if you want to. They're going to be a little bit more expensive, but the option's on the table for you. On a brushless motor, a 2 amp hour battery is incredible, as you'll see in part 2. On something like this, the 1.5 amp hour batteries are okay for light use, especially if your charging rate is good. So you want to look at the rate of your charger. You can see a couple chargers up here. So this one here is the Bosch. These typically take about 40-45 minutes to charge. So as you're using one, you can plug the other one in, and it's, you know, charging while you're using your other one. Now, the other day I was actually working so fast that I depleted both batteries. I depleted one battery before the other was finished. And so, again, this is a brushed motor, but in the brushless example down here, the battery charges fast enough on this Milwaukee here that it finished charging before I depleted this battery. So another reason that brushless motor is pretty awesome. But again, if you see a good value out there on a brushed motor, don't let it stop you, because it's better to have the tool than wait and never get one. The nice thing about impact drivers, guys, is that they're so versatile. You know, it's not going to be like a one-use tool. If you do any mechanical work or automotive work or working on trailers or motorcycles or anything, having an impact driver is fantastic. It really saves the knuckles, because you don't have to put a lot of force on, you know, a conventional socket driver or something and then have it slip and you bust a knuckle or something. You can really put a controlled force on a fastener with an impact wrench, and you're not in there putting torque with your hand and busting your knuckles. So whenever I can use an impact driver, I do. Alright, so getting back to use again, we talked about, you know, if you're into automotive or motorcycles or anything like that, great to have. If you're a homeowner or a hobbyist and you're occasionally running in and out drywall screws or fixing lumber together or anything like that, this is a great tool to have. If you're a tradesman and you don't have an impact driver, you've been using a drill driver, man, you're missing the boat. Go grab a decent impact driver. It doesn't even have to be the latest technology, just something decent. It's going to give you an incredible performance jump as compared to the drill driver. To the prepper, maybe you live in a tornado zone or a hurricane zone, or maybe you're just in an area that's prone to civil unrest. I mean, you know, it happens, whether it's caused by natural disaster or court cases. You need to protect your residence or your apartment or your windows. I have enough plywood here at the house that I can board up every window except for the Arcadia type doors, which are bigger, but it's a good idea to just have some basic lumber on hand. A few sheets of plywood, some 2x4s, a couple lengths of 4x4s, 1x2s. It's just something that, you know, typically the hobbyist woodworker homeowner is going to own anyhow, and if you have the room for it, it's just one of those things, those supplies that can be very difficult to get when everyone is after it. Now, could you plywood up your house very quickly with something like this? Yeah, absolutely. You run in, you know, some big 3-inch screws or fasteners of some type. You know, this is going to work into wood or siding or even stucco. I mean, there's lots of things that you can do with 3-inch fasteners. So if you're going to own something like this as part of your survival and prep, own a good selection of different fasteners, from lag bolts to 3-inch drywall screws to 2-inch screws, you know, whatever you think that you would need to reinforce your windows. You might be afraid of someone breaking in a condition of civil unrest, you know, or a riot. Maybe you need to beef up your front doorway with some lumber. You can easily and quickly do that. As far as brands go, guys, I'm a little bit partial to DeWalt, Milwaukee, Bosch, but I also have, you know, a little Hitachi driver where I don't need impact, something real small, light overhead, hanging pictures, that sort of thing. But there's a lot of good tools out there. Makita makes good tools. Hitachi makes good tools. Ridgid makes good tools. So there's a lot to choose from. And look at your reviews, see how they're rated, see what the different features are. For example, right now, this is one of the few 12-volt brushless designs out there. I don't think Bosch probably won't have one here in the US market. You might get it over there in Europe, but here in the US, I don't think we're going to have an option for a brushless motor for at least a year. On the DeWalt side, we might see something. We're seeing brushless motors in their 20-volt lineup, and they've recently released new drill drivers and hammer drills. But right now, DeWalt does not have a brushless 12-volt. All of these are quality tools. The fit and finish on the Bosch and DeWalt seem like they're a little bit higher than the Milwaukee. And what do I mean by fit and finish? Well, just the plastics on the Milwaukee. They feel a little, you know, squishier. They don't quite have that snap when you know, pop in the battery pack. This squeeze here isn't nearly as nice. You can see when I plug it in, it's not quite as positive of a snap. On the Bosch, everything's snappy. The plastics are really great. All the seams, all the moldings are put together really well. It doesn't have a lot of, you know, if you look at like the Milwaukee, you'll see a lot of this kind of stuff. Big gaps in the plastic and everything. But hey, did it stop me from buying it? No, because this is going to be a quality tool for you. It's going to last you a long time. It just doesn't look as pretty perhaps, and maybe, you know, some of the small ergonomics don't work quite as perfectly as the Bosch and DeWalt, but this is a hard use tool and it's going to last you a whole bunch of years, so I wouldn't worry too much about the fit and finish when the tool works so good. That's what you're really after, is how well does the tool work. When it comes to DeWalt, it seems like DeWalt puts all their time and attention into their drills and drivers. So when you look at their flagship drill driver, you look at their flagship impact driver, it really is a step above, especially in the fit and finish. The way that the motors sound, if you go listen to the M18 Fuel Milwaukee compared to the DeWalt, I mean, the DeWalt just runs like a Formula One car. I mean, it's just something about those drills. Again, I look at the different features that are available out there, and I pick the one that you know, has what I'm looking for. Again, DeWalt doesn't have a 12-volt brushless right now, so I've got the Milwaukee, plus I've got another tool that uses these M12 cells, M18 being their 18-volt line, M12 being their 12-volt max line. Well, guys, so we've talked about a whole bunch. Do you need one of these? You'll have to decide for yourself, but I consider it one of the most valuable tools that I have, one of the most useful tools in my whole inventory. I mean, basic hand tools are great. You know, you can't do without those, but when it comes to electric tools, there's a lot of stuff that's available. How much do you need will depend on what you do. If you do any fastening of any type, I really would urge you to consider an impact driver because of how useful they are. As a prepper, again, it's the quickest way to install fasteners, to board up windows, to do whatever you have to do. When I'm out on the road, I typically carry a good screwdriver with me, and I carry a small impact driver. This one goes with me with a little impact driver kit here when I'm on the road. If I have a mechanical problem or I have problems with gear and I can't get it with a conventional screwdriver, the impact force, that hammering force of the impact driver is normally going to do what I need it to do. There you have it, guys. Thanks for watching. Patriot out.